Today, our conversation is around branding. Brand, as we know, is a promise, and traditionally, branding has been about creating and communicating that promise to consumers. But did you know there's a linkage between branding and mythology? That's what we are going to delve today. To demystify this, we have with us OP Srivastav on this show. OP, hello.
Hi.
Before I go ahead, a quick introduction about OP. OP has been an erstwhile investment banker. He's currently a national award winning filmmaker and an author. His latest book is titled Branding at Mythology. The book explores a compelling idea that behind every great brand, there is a great myth. So, what I did, I've put together 10 questions to essentially explore this topic further. OP, are you fine with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Debashish.
First thing first, what inspired you to write Branding and Mythology?
Debashish, you know that I have been interested in branding uh, for quite some time. And even when we were in ICICI, uh, I used to dabble into the development of ICICI brand to begin with. Yeah.
Hmm.
So this fascination with branding has always been with me. And as I went on reading about branding, uh, and I used to read a lot of what they call as the brand stories, or the stories how a particular brand was developed the way it is being projected now. I came across a number of international brands in particular, which had their origin or the inspiration in Greek mythology.
Hmm.
And that was very fascinating for me
Hmm.
because I found that the majority of the very well known, established, respected brands have their origins in ancient mythology, which is to a modern brand strategist would sound very strange. So, as I started reading about it, I started discovering and uncovering this strange relationship between brands and ancient mythology. And that became the focus of my study. And then I worked on it for quite a number of years. And that's how the branding at mythology, the book, came into being. That's the story
Hmm.
behind my book, Branding at Mythology.
Hmm. Hmm. So, let's really get our basics right before we go ahead. So, what, according to you, is mythology?
Well, Devashish, mythology is uh, not the short term uh, word which we tend to use. Mythology is not about only epics or the Ramayana or Mahabharata or few ancient tales here and there. Mythology is a huge container. It's a container which has accumulated our collective memory over generations. So it has anecdotes from Ramayana, epics, Puranas, stories, folklore, folk songs, folk art, folk imagery, symbols, and
Hmm.
also nostalgia. The collective nostalgia of human beings is also a part of this big container which we call as mythology. So
Hmm.
that's my interpretation of mythology.
Hmm. Okay, so it's, as you say, it's essentially an agglomeration of stories, symbols, archetypes, rituals, folks, memories, and imageries. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what is branding according to you?
Okay. So branding is again not a short-term exercise. Branding doesn't mean only the logo or the name or the positioning, etc., etc. Branding is an exercise which aims at creating a certain imagery or a perception in the minds of the consumer. Okay. So the whole exercise, whether it comes through symbols or stories or colors or whatever, and creates a particular perception in the minds of the consumer, that process is, according to me, is branding.
Hmm. Okay, okay. So, why do myths work so powerfully?
Okay, so myths work not only at the normal level, myths work at the subconscious level. And just to add to it, mythological stories have a neurological connection to your brain. When we hear a story from any mythological story, few cells in our brain, they're called mirror neurons. Yeah, they get activated and they create an empathy for the story or the product for which we are talking about. Okay, so
Hmm.
there are chemicals which get create oxytocin, which creates happiness or trust, and there are chemicals which create dopamine, which creates some kind of a affinity and a bond towards a
Hmm.
particular brand. So when we talk about, so mythology is cognitive shortcut to our subconscious mind.
Hmm.
So when you hear a mythological story, it the mind tells you, oh, this is familiar. This is something safe. This is what I have heard of. This is something which has been tried by my forefather. Okay. So this is something which can be trusted. So mythology is that weapon which helps you create instant affinity at the subconscious level for your product.
Hmm. Interesting. So what are the examples of global myth-based brands, OP?
Okay. So there are numerous, and you take the topmost brands internationally, and they all have mythological upbringing, so to say. For example, Nike. Nike is nothing but representation of Greek goddess of victory. Yeah, the winged goddess of victory, Nike, and the swoosh which the Nike uses. Yeah, it is nothing but borrowed from that wing, the upper wing of the that lady. Okay, so Nike says it's not the story of a shoe; it's the story of making you a marathon runner. It
Hmm.
gives you the wings of you know to escape, to learn, to fly. Yeah. So it gives you that kind of a strength or that kind of a feeling that
Hmm.
if you are using Nike, you are
Hmm.
going to become a marathon runner. Okay. So that is the imagery and that is the background which Nike has used. That's why Nike is used, the the victory goddess of Greek mythology. Similarly, Starbucks. Starbucks, not many people know, uh, uses this concept of what is called as a mermaid, which has got twin legs. And it's a mythological figure in Greek mythology. And this mermaid used to make sounds to attract sailors, in the sea to come and visit her and to
Hmm.
attract those sailors to come and, come to the place where she was residing. So Starbuck has used this imagery that Starbuck is a place which calls you. It's not a place to have coffee. It's a place to come and sit and relax and have your peace of mind. It gives you pause in your hectic schedule of life. It creates a space for you. It has created a space for you which gives you pause. Pause your life, relax.
Hmm.
Coffee will follow. but to
Mm,
enjoy
mm.
the time. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's a connection Starbucks has with mythology.
Mm, mm. So it's essentially the third place, as they call it, beyond home and office. I get it. Yeah.
Absolutely. In India, also, we used to have something called chopal. In Indian villages, it is called chopal, where the
Mm,
oldies of the village will come and just have a hookah and then, relax and chat. It's a place to just sit and chat and gossip and exchange your ideas and have
mm.
peace of mind. So it's like that.
Yeah, yeah. And in the book, you also talk about Versace. Can you throw some light on that? Yeah.
Yeah. So Versace, if you know, it's a high fashion brand, you know, and the imagery they have used, if you see the image they use of a lady called Medusa, which is a Greek uh,
Yeah.
mythological figure, which has got snakes in her hairs. Okay, and the saying is that if the Medusa looks at you, you will be turned into a stone. The gaze of Medusa is so
Mm,
alluring that you will not be able to move. So that's the concept Versace has used, that my products are so alluring that once you look at them, you get frozen.
mm.
So that's the connection between Medusa and Versace.
Got it. Any Indian examples?
Yeah. So in India, I think one of the examples which I like is, which is of recent past. It's a brand called Paper Boat. If you have seen their ads,
Yeah.
they are full of your childhood stories. They show a boat which is being one used to, as a child, one used to put into the water. So it is connecting your nostalgia to the brand. And
Mm,
it's about the drinks which we used to have in olden times, and they have revived
yeah.
those drinks. And the imagery they are trying to create is that of a nostalgic childhood. See, the most interesting Indian example is that of a brand called Lakme. I don't know how
Mm,
many people know this story, but many don't know this story. Nehru wanted a international class luxury brand to be produced in India. He had a collaboration with a French company, and the Indian suggested to the French that let's uh, give a name which is called Lakshmi. But the French, as they pronounce, they couldn't pronounce the Lakshmi, and they called it Lakme. And that's how the word Lakme, or Lakme, as we call it today, was created. And Lakme became a famous brand. So Lakme is nothing but originally, a representation of Lakshmi, which is the goddess of wealth. We all of us know. So if you are using Lakme, then you have goddess with you. That's the connotation.
interesting. Now, in the book, you talk something about Brand Alchemy Lab. Can you demystify that for us?
Yeah. So, when I started researching on it, I found so many examples, but I wanted to make it very, very easy for people to understand, even for a common man to understand how to integrate this powerful mathological concepts into modern branding, and this process is very, very complicated. So I have tried to simplify that process. Brand alchemy, as we all know, is a fusion of so many metals into producing a new metal. So that's what the brand alchemy or does. So brand alchemy fuses mythological concepts into modern brands and creates a brand which is what I call a mythologically inspired brand, but it is much more enduring, and it gives you an identity which is as great as that of Lakme or Nike, or the power of mythology uh, gets loaded into your brand. And how do you do it? So I have given a toolkit, a step by step guide as to how you start with the concept, which archetype you take, which symbols you take, and how do you create a narrative around that, and then how do you integrate the narrative into the methodological process, and how do you create a fusion identity which has the power of mythology and which has the power of modern branding also. So it's a very simplified toolkit for any common man who's interested into branding to pick up a new brand or an existing brand and inculcate or fuse into this the power of mythology and make a big enduring brand which will appeal to the common man at the subconscious level.
Hmm, hmm. But tell me, OP, is mythology risky?
Yeah. So you see, mythology, use of mythology has two sides to it. It can give you power, enormous amount of power to reach out to the subconscious mind of the people. But it can also backfire. It can also recoil. And we all have seen how this in Paris, how this cartoonists tried to play around with a image of a particular prophet, and it kind of backfired. So similarly, in India also, there have been cases where improper, I call it improper use without understanding the mythological concept, use into product branding. For example, there was a brand called Sunlight, a soap brand,
Yeah.
which came out with an ad which had the figures of Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Ganesha into it, and it was repelled. People went strongly against it because it was not the proper use of the imagery or the image of the mythological idols which we respect. So you have to use mythology in your branding with a lot of care, a lot of respect, and a lot of positive thinking. You can't be casual about it. So you must understand the chemistry, the idea, the that's why there is a chapter in our in my book which is deep diving into mythology. So you understand the mythology in the right in the right way, and then use it also into a proper way into your branding. Otherwise, it will backfire.
Hmm. So OP, what would readers and even practitioners gain by reading your book or knowing your framework that you just mentioned?
Okay. So, Devashish, even for a common man, this marriage of myth and branding, to me, it sounds very fascinating. Not many people have, brought out this concept or this marriage, as we call it, uh, for the common man to understand. So, that itself is a very interesting story. But apart from that, for any brand manager or any brand strategist or a lover of brand, if you want to make your brand more powerful, more enduring, you know, uh, and more acceptable to the common man at the subconscious level, and make it more enduring and timeless, then you should use, uh, mythology in the right way.
Option around technology, AI, etc. What is the future of this idea?
Okay. So you see, the time mythology is a timeless vehicle. It has been there for generation, and will continue to be there for the next generation also. But as you said, technology is changing the world around us. So AI is also changing the way the branding is being uh, worked around. So AI will help us in the days to come to identify a particular consumer. In the sea of consumers, how do you identify a particular consumer for a product which I'm trying to sell? So this process can be simplified by AI, artificial intelligence. But why that person likes a particular thing is something AI cannot decipher. It can be only understood by understanding what kind of archetype that consumer is. So, if you want to discover the archetype, then you have to use mythology. So, mythology will continue to help you to identify the consumer behavior, whereas AI will help you in identifying the consumer, but how that consumer behaves and why he behaves like the way he behaves can only be deciphered if you find a linkage or you are able to create a linkage between a mathological archetype and that particular product.
Thank you, OP. Thank you for all your insights. It has been a magnificent conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, clearly, it appears OP has added something to the existing book of knowledge of the world of branding. So, as we understood, branding and mythology is a new way to understand how brands shape culture. And as it looks like, if we use it, probably we will give heft to the way we brand our products and services. Thank you so much for joining us. Please share your feedback. We look forward to staying connected.